I am South African. I grew up in Johannesburg and spent the first 24 years of my life in South Africa. And my parents would take me to the game reserves very frequently, certainly 2 to 3 times a year. We would be out in what we call the African bush on photo safaris, observing the many species, some of them small, some of them not so glamorous, but always intrigued by the large megafauna, especially elephants and rhino. The rhino is literally disappearing before our eyes due to poaching. In South Africa alone, we have lost over 5,000 rhinos due to poaching in the last 5 years. It is an environmental catastrophe. There's really no other way to say it. And they are being poached for their horn, and their horn is being transported back into Southeast Asia, both China, but primarily your country, Vietnam. Her name was Hope, and she had been brutalized by poachers about 3 months prior and left to die in the bush. They had attacked her with machetes and had not only cut off her horn, but had cut off part of her face. And she was simply left to bleed out. She was rescued, and the priorities were to find a way to protect her wounds so that they would not get infected. And I will never forget that morning. It was cold, it was crisp. We were standing around her once she was darted. And the surgeons tried frantically for about 2.5 hours to design a shield for her face so that those wounds would not deteriorate. And at one point, I got the opportunity to lay my hands on her and feel her breathing. Breathing in, breathing out, breathing in, and breathing out during this excruciating surgery. I looked into her eye and I saw the tears rolling down her face. I knew that she knew what she was going through. And I made a promise to this rhino 3.5 years ago that I would do whatever it takes for the rest of my life to raise awareness and to try and find a way to make sure that we are able to save this species for our children and their children. That rhino Hope, although tragically she died 1.5 years later, remains a beacon of hope for me in the fight against poaching. Now, whilst that's a very personal and moving, I suppose, story, there's also great stories of rhino survival. One of the rhinos that comes to mind is a rhino called Thandi, which in the local Xhosa language means love. And she was poached in 2012, along with another rhino who subsequently died. But Dr. Folds in the Eastern Cape of South Africa was able to save Thandi. And she too went through several procedures. Her wounds were not quite as bad as Hope because the poachers had left her skull intact. But she had to undergo several skin grafts. And ultimately, we were able to save her. And so she was released back into the wild as a survivor of poaching. And then, about 1.5 years after that, Thandi became pregnant and gave birth to a little baby calf called Tembi, which also means hope, and now has had her second baby called Colin, which is another remarkable story because I often get asked, is it worth trying to save just one rhino? What does that really mean? And when you see a rhino that has been poached and has come back from the brink of death, only then to have babies and have those babies healthy and flourishing in the wild, does it give me hope that what we're trying to do is worthwhile. The game rangers who put their lives on the line every day to protect not just rhino, but all of our wildlife and our biodiversity. These rangers make very little money. They work extremely long hours under very lonely conditions. They're extraordinarily professional, and their passion is to preserve our natural heritage, just like it is mine and many other people. They go through extensive training on how to apprehend poachers, but their days and nights are long, and sometimes days and weeks and months go by without any incident. So they truly are the front line of defense in the protection of these animals, not just in South Africa, but right throughout Africa. So they are extremely important. And so what we're trying to do with the TCU Rhino Initiative is address all of these issues. The awareness on the ground in South Africa, the protection of these animals to make sure that they don't get poached by supporting our rangers in the field, rhino rehabilitation, rescue and management, especially rhinos that have been poached, and how we save those and rehabilitate those back into the wild. But the critical component in all of this is raising awareness and support and having your voice in the key country of Vietnam to begin to work on reducing the demand. Because if the buying stops, then the killing will stop too. And this magnificent species, the picture of which you see behind me here, will be on this planet for decades to come.